Hi guys, welcome back to Heart Unfiltered podcast. So I kept seeing this post on a lot of people's status lately, and the more I keep seeing it, the more I keep thinking about it. It said, "You won't find the same person twice, even in the same person." And it got me thinking, really thinking, but mostly about the whole idea of, going back to an ex. Because when you look at that quote, it can mean two very different things. It could mean that people change, and maybe if they are not the same person anymore, it's okay to give it another shot. Or it could mean that you will never be loved by the same version of that person again. So going back might be chasing something that no longer exists. And that right there is where it gets complicated. See, I used to have a very clear stance on this. Your ex is your ex for a reason. You broke up because something didn't work, and chances are it still won't. Most times, people don't really change unless they see a reason to. And as painful as it is, you can't love someone into changing. You can support them, you can hope for them, but you can't transform them because the truth is love doesn't fix people who don't see anything wrong with who they are. And while waiting for them to become who you hope they will be, you might end up losing yourself piece by piece in the name of compromise or understanding. And by the time you realize it, you've become a stranger to your own peace. So yeah, that's where my old belief came from. That when something ends, it ends. Close that chapter, no rewrites. But, you know, over the years, I've learned that life isn't that black and white. Sometimes things fall apart not because they were wrong, but because we weren't ready. There are some people you meet at the wrong time, when priorities were different, when you hadn't healed from what became before, or when you simply didn't have the emotional tool to make it work. And in those cases, sometimes going back can make sense. You know, if the distance wasn't caused by broken trust or disrespect, if it was just timing, two people who cared but needed to go separately, then maybe, just maybe, there's room for a new beginning. But it only works if both of you grew in ways that don't clash with who you are now, because growth doesn't automatically mean alignment. You could both have evolved beautifully, just in different directions. Now, there are some exes you have no business going back to. You know, if your non negotiable was broken, say cheating is your non negotiable, abuse, poor communication that both parties didn't agree on, constant disrespect, going back becomes an emotional gamble. Even if they've changed, the trust may never fully recover. You find yourself doubting, overthinking, wondering if history is repeating itself. And that kind of love, the one you have to monitor, isn't peace, it's punishment. Or maybe your boundary was, lifestyle, like you don't do smokers or heavy drinkers. And you have to convince yourself it's not that bad now. But over time, that small thing would, chip away at your peace because it goes against what you value. And no matter how much love you pour into it, if it constantly fights your peace, I promise you it's not worth it. So maybe that quote means both things at once. First, people change, yes, but not always into the versions we want or need. And sometimes love deserves another chance, but only when both people have become new versions of themselves that still align. because you won't find the same person twice, not even in the same person. So the question is, do you still love who they've become? And does who you've become still love them back? So tell me, what do you think? Would you ever go back to an ex knowing they are not the same person anymore? I would really love to hear your thoughts on this one, because this is my personal reflection on this. Until next time, this is Heart Unfiltered. Bye.